Have you tagged me in it, so I should be able to approve it here?
Yeah, I tagged you in it. It's setting up my webinar. It's attempting to post to it right now. It says we're live.
All right. I'm sharing it now.
What's going on, man? Oh.
So what's been good, bro? Tell me about your life right now.
It's been an interesting week, man.
Okay.
It's like we're going on like almost 2 straight weeks of like discussing leaving Hawaii, this beautiful umbrella under the 5 minutes of rain that we just got. And
we're
been
week 2 of that then. Week 2.
Week 2. Week 2 of the discussion. And I think the biggest thing, and I've been thinking about like content from like a writing perspective and like a sharing perspective and an enrollment perspective as well, is like bringing people into my business and what to share about and what my lifestyle is like. And one of the things that I noticed the most about this moving conversation is that I'm so grateful to be in a relationship where we're able to share what we want no matter what. Because like McCare last night, she's like, all this stuff, she's like, I'm really scared to move. Like, I've been here for 15 years. And I'm like, well, yeah, it makes perfect sense. But it's just like most people, because I'm so stoked, like I'm ready to pack up and go like today, you know? And I know that a lot of people even push that little stuff down, just like, you know, being scared or, you know, I want to talk about this city, even though I'm not sure that you're going to be cool with that. And it's just, I know the topic of moving is a big deal and moving itself is a big deal, and it isn't, yet it's just more of our ability to allow our conversations to evolve in like real time and not be attached to, hey, well, I wanted this yesterday and I don't necessarily want it today. Can we have a discussion about what this looks like now? Does that make sense? So I'm stoked about that.
It's pretty cool. Well, it's cool to be in a relationship that's plastic, right? That's always, you know, moving and changing shape versus, I mean, it's like rigid and you kind of always have the same input output is just kind of consistent, but you guys are always upping the ante, playing a bigger game, being bigger people. And this is just, this is the next bigger step. And I think the fact that your wife is scared is perfect reason to be more, you know, be so excited, like, and ready to jump into it. All that means is that there's an opportunity out there. That's what fear is the indication of, is that there's,
for sure,
there's growing room out there, and it's going to be an exciting space to grow into.
Heck yeah, brother. No, what's good for you? What's going on?
Not too much, man. I spent the weekend with the family and had a workshop on Saturday. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, I saw that.
Another 30 people get into the ice and do the breathing. It's pretty cool stuff.
So I saw the picture of you like sitting on like the freaking infinity packets of ice bags. It's like, yeah, this is me. It was awesome. It was very alpha. I dug it. And then like, then I saw dudes like, if this is too loud, let me know. I was like in a quiet spot, and then it started to rain in my quiet spot. So I moved under this umbrella, which is in the middle of everything. So I haven't done the ice thing yet because I'm too scared. So I know how my not very cold showers here in Hawaii go. And so then I see, and then I've watched the videos, I watched the documentary, that guy that goes to, and I've read the book. What was the one, What Doesn't Kill Us? Like that. I read that, and these guys are like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm just standing in this like glacier cold water friggin' thing for like a minute, like just dealing with it. It's so interesting. So tell me, I know what cold water feels like when I turn the water on cold in my shower. Like, I know how it feels.
Sure.
So when you're in the cold water now, because you're used to allowing yourself to experience that, like what's different now? And I guess what, like a year and a half ago when you got certified? How long has it been?
Well, I've been training for 2.5 years. So I've been teaching it for just over a year. And, it's really interesting, man. Like the ice, the edge never gets dull. Like it's always a sharp edge. And the training stimulus is every bit as tough as it always is. It's always extremely intense. And that's kind of the point, though. And that's what makes it such a good teacher, and such a good ally as a training tool for training the mind and the body, because it's so relentless and so consistently unforgiving. And the result of training that way, though, whether it's really cold showers, because a really cold shower can be pretty effective, and an ice bath is just a little bit more effective than that. However, training with those things on a consistent basis, as a result of that, I process fear and I process stress differently than before. It's hard to contextualize or characterize or describe exactly what that means for me. However, my experience is much easier when an environmental stressor comes in or a fear stimulus comes in. I can process both of those things a lot better, and I can quickly decipher between manufactured fear and a life-threatening situation where I'm actually in danger. Because knowing the difference between those situations is really important, and knowing whether it's my ego that's trying to save my life or my ego trying to save his face. And it's valuable to be able to discern the two, because then I can respond super appropriately. And I think that window's gotten shorter, and my ability to make better decisions in that very chaotic space, because you felt it. You felt being totally triggered by your environment. This is just an environmental trigger that you're in control over. And when you're in control over it, you can pay attention to it a lot more. Just like going into these hard conversations with your wife. You guys have gotten so good at them because you continue to do them. You guys have both gotten used to that feeling of uncomfortable, and your feeling of uncomfortable and her feeling of uncomfortable, you experiencing each other in that over and over as well, and yourselves. You guys are both better at it as a result. And it's like paying your dues almost. The ice is like that, but it's a broad spectrum training stimulus for fear and pain, pretty much. Fear and stress.
That's really fascinating. That's a really good way to explain it too, because there's a huge difference between, some guy breaking into your house with a knife and like throwing away your Journey t-shirt that's been hanging in your closet for 27 years. There's a huge difference. And a lot of people, I mean, and I fall, of course, we both fall under that category of other people as well. Like,
yeah, me included. People commonly make that mistake a lot of times. So that's man, you got me hooked again. Like, I want to start doing this again. You should send me like your spreadsheet or whatever, or get me on a training regimen. I feel like I need to do something. My physical body, my knees both hurt, and I know this would help. So it's that's really interesting, man. Yeah.
So tell me about the workshop. Like, how's this come up? Like, because you're part of, like, is it a franchise thing or?
Kind of. We're basically ambassadors, kind of ordained more or less by whim. We breathed our asses off and hiked a mountain and did our training and proved scientific knowledge to a certain degree, and demonstrated our ability to lead a group. And we got the no dogma baptism, and so that's where we are. And as a result of that, we can offer workshops, specific workshops on the website, or more of an off-token workshop through our own channels. And if we sell it on the website, we give them a small stipend. If we sell it on our own, we keep the money. It's all pretty cool structure.
When's Kilimanjaro? You're talking February or January? February?
It's going to be March 2nd, man. So we land in Tanzania February 28th, and we climb on the 2nd. And it's all I think about, dude. It's all I think about every single day. I mean, it's not all I think about every single day. However, I think about it every single day, multiple times a day, because I know it's going to be a challenge for my mind. So I'm building my muscles in my mind around the idea that my body's capable of doing this, and willing my physiology on cellular level, even, I would say, the same way people will a plant into death or will a plant into health by cheering it or cursing at it. I'm doing this with my own physiology, all of my cells, every day, visualizing me being able to do it, visualizing the training that I'm doing, making a difference on cellular level. It's just been a really cool opportunity for me to look in and focus in.
Question. This is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. I'm reading this book called Everybody is Wrong About God. And it talks about the reason we created religion and the reason we still use it today. And the guy who wrote the book is very, very much interested in a post-theistic secular society. So there's that context for sure.
Sure.
And he talks about one of the three primary needs that people hold on to dogmatic faiths, even though there's so much out there that disproves a lot of it, per se. Not that you can prove or disprove that God exists. However, there's certain aspects of each of these religions that are like, that was brought into the virginity in marriage for women is one of the things that he talks about. And the reason why religious faiths hold on to this so much, well, the reason it started is because paternity tests didn't exist in freaking
way to guarantee
400, yeah, the guaranteed lineage. There's no way to guarantee it unless
it was invented.
That's the only way. And so that's how this patriarchal thing held on to control over women's bodies and stuff. And now that it's built into the moral frameworks of these religions, it's that's why it's we can't break this, because it's doctrine, it's law. Because as soon as paternity test breaks this one thing, or they accept that that's broken and they change it, then it just, the whole thing falls apart, and then there's your Journey t-shirt hanging in the closet. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
And so, but one of the things he did say is that community, meaning, and morals is the top three things. Where do we come from? Where's my moral framework? And how can I build a community based on shared stuff? But then he talked about prayer, and it's just interesting.
It's what a tribe offers you, man. It's what a tribe offers you.
Yeah, for sure. It's exactly what it offers you. And you can build a tribe based on everything. And so it's just really fascinating. But I guess the thing is you're talking about this ice bath, right? And you prove the thing, and there's some science that you're proving. And you've heard of these studies as well. It's with placebos and stuff. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm giving you this drug. It's going to cure your cancer. And so how much, man, I'm not even sure where I'm going with this. It's just where my brain is moving, and I'm just allowing it to process out loud at the moment.
Well, you touched on placebo, which I think is a really good thing to touch on when you're talking about this method specifically, because the placebo effect is a huge part of this. And I don't really like to call it the placebo effect. I call it the placebo effect when I'm describing it in my workshops. No, I just call it the human effect. It's our own ability to manifest healing by thinking. And we like to write this off as a scientific fluke or as a weird statistic. But if you start investigating placebo effect, it's one of the most studied things out there, yet we're not really doing anything with those studies. It's been studied 35,000 times, right? Mm-hmm. You can trick a person into healing themselves by lying to them so they believe something that's not true. That's retarded, that's real. It's mind-blowing that that's not all we're talking about. So there's a huge part of that with the Wim Hof method, because of the practice, because of doing the breathing, because of doing the cold exposure, it re-regulates a lot of naturally deregulated systems, because we live in a very unreal world with our pocket phones and our jackets and our heaters and our heated cars and our heated blankets and all these things, air condition, all these things. They've made a lot of our systems weak. So the Wim Hof method re-regulates those systems. And as a result, it causes a baseline increase in the human experience. This will make anyone feel a little bit healthier. This will make anyone feel a little bit happier and a little bit stronger. Anyone who does it will feel this, right? A baseline increase. And so you give that to someone who's ill, someone who has a terminal disease, or someone who has a debilitating disease, or something that's really limiting their liberty in some way. And then you give them the Wim Hof method where they get this baseline increase. And so they've been feeling really shitty for a long time. And then they feel a little bit better, and they're like, "Oh my God, this thing that I'm doing is fucking working," and they're overwhelmed with gratitude and inspiration, and then they believe that what they're doing is doing something, and then the real magic happens, and they heal themselves, and that's really what happens. And there's something really, really exciting about that to me, and that's probably one of the very core.
No, but I guess like to play devil's advocate and challenging, but like, so I mean, you could technically do that with literally anything.
Totally.
I mean, do you think that that's completely, or do you think that there's a line that I would draw to say that, you know, I mean, is that infinitely repeatable, or is there a line drawn, or what do you think?
I mean, I think there's probably a spectrum, and that's probably a sliding spectrum depending on the case, because we're all human. We're all slightly different biologically. We all have slightly different needs because of our own cellular programming since birth and before that. We all have and need different things and different balances. So I think there's a spectrum there. However, I do believe across the board, whether you're X, Y, or Z, anything in the middle, I think that you would experience that baseline increase. Unless you were one of the few things that you had a contraindication, like where you're just not fit to practice the method, but it's a very small category of people.
What would be the what would make me unfit to practice?
Pregnant would be one.
Okay.
So pregnancy's pretty much off the board completely. However, if you were to practice before you got pregnant, you would have you'd be thankful. You'd be very thankful because of your ability to consciously breathe. You would have, like, you practice conscious breathing to prepare for labor. This brings conscious breathing into a new magnifying glass that you can't fully comprehend until you practice, right? So it'll benefit you when you go into labor, but don't train while in labor. If you take high blood pressure medicine, it can be dangerous. This person can still practice, however, they need to approach with a different trajectory. They can't just jump right in. If they have epilepsy, they can have really bad reactions from the breathing, and the cold can also send them into having a seizure because of the level of stress. Mm-hmm. That person can also still practice. They just have to approach it from a different angle, and they have to come at it a little slower. And they can actually see a lot of benefit from practicing as well. But I think a lot of it's still that placebo. Hey, I feel better. This is working, and now I'm going to close the loop on it. You know what I mean? The belief systems behind it. But other than that, there's a certain disease if you have it's called nodes. So you're hyper allergic basically to cold. That's really the only other indicator.
That's my wife. That's why at all the places we're looking at, there's heat there consistently.
She doesn't have her nodes though. I don't think she's just mentally hyper allergic.
Yeah, she's just been in Hawaii for 15 years.
Yeah, man, I could get her cold adapted in 4 days.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, like, I remember you calling me a handful of, I guess almost a year ago or so, maybe, and talking about this, and so I'm thinking, yeah, it's time to get back into it and check it out. And then Sean makes a comment here about being an agnostic theist or an agnostic atheist is the only way to fly. So one of the things that he talks about in the book, if we're going to, he says, it's one of the things he talks about for moving to a post-theistic place. And just keep in mind that the context of the book is to move post-theistic to, he believes that something godlike or like God exists. Yet he says, as soon as you believe in it and start creating your moral frameworks based on something that you can't prove, and as soon as you, like, you know, you go to war over that very same thing, like it's done. Like it's over. Like you've lost the bubble in that. And so he thinks as far as atheism goes, he says part of the thing to move past theism is to stop being atheist, because one of the most powerful things that theists have is that there's people that argue with them, that keeps, like, the flame burning. And so I'm not saying I don't really know where I'm at. It's just a very interesting book. It's a very challenging thing. It's got a lot of really cool information, and I like to challenge my own thought processes. Growing up in a very dogmatic family, my mom's a pastor, my cousin's a pastor, my uncle's a pastor. And so it's definitely influenced my life to a certain extent. Yet it's one of the things he talks about atheism, though, especially is like, if you didn't play golf, would you call yourself a non-golfer? And so it's one of the things too that he's talking about is like, so if
you're proclaiming it just to argue,
you're literally proclaiming it just to argue it. You're literally the only reason. It's just super interesting. But another thing that he thinks is, go ahead.
Which is interesting, but my feeling about atheists too plays into just what you just said, but it's a totally different angle. It's like it's the other side of that loop. So my feeling on atheism is there's just too many things, from quantum mechanics to how large the universe is. There's just too many things that, for me, make it arrogant to think that you're atheist. That the fact that this entire universe was an accident, that the fact that these atoms are holding up this table so I can have a conversation with you on this laptop. Like, these atoms they're going to a code. There's some quantum mechanics here that's operating them. For some reason, no one knows why, but they're stacked on top of each other, and I have a laptop standing on top of it. There's order there. There's intelligence there. To say that that's an accident is just, it seems fucking crazy to me. And then you look at biology. You look at a cell. You look at a cell. You look at what a cell can do. What a cell can do, how a cell can be anything a cell wants, how a cell reproduces. The ways, it's amazing. It's one of the most beautiful things in the entire world. A tiny little cell. If you were to take all of the pieces of a cathedral and stack them over a field and just stretch them all out, all the pieces to a giant, beautiful cathedral, you could leave all those pieces there for 100 billion trillion years, and it would never, ever, ever, ever turn into a cathedral. Ever, 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 no matter what. No matter what, it never would just atomize into a cathedral. So if that wouldn't happen, then why the fuck would any of these other shit happen without some sort of intelligent order or design? That's my thought on atheism. I think you're better off saying that you're agnostic. You sound way less arrogant because you really don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too, and that's why he goes into the book with this context, because he realizes that it's going to stir a lot of people's shit. Because it's like 70% of the world is theists in some way, and he just thinks that he thinks the argument is freaking outdated. He says the idea is ridiculous. To say that you have the right answer is ridiculous. And one of the things that he wishes that we could accept more of was that it's okay not to know everything. And one of the things too is like, people just have a really tough time being small. They have a really tough time being small. And so it's like, well, I have to connect this other thing. And it was just, I don't know, you and I talk about this all the time. It's like, yes, we're a small part of this big, big thing. Yet we're a part of this big thing. We're connected to it. We're a part of this thing. We are the thing. And so
this cell is me. The cells in my hand are me. They're me. They're connected to me. I'm connected to this thing. Like, it's all the same.
In 6 years, it's going to be completely exchanged. And so, it's just like, but then it's just interesting once you get to like the dogma portion of it and how people are like, well, this is the answer to this, and da 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 da. And then he talks about like math, right? And you're talking about like this massive system. We're not proving or disproving that anything's true. It's like whenever some super smart math guy or girl, math person, figures out some new math, they're not figuring out. They're just discovering a part of something that already exists. Like,
you're not inventing electricity, bro.
You're not inventing electricity. Like, you didn't invent the light bulb already existed. It's like all the parts, like those pieces of a cathedral. It's like,
totally.
Yeah.
They don't come together on accident.
And it's just an interesting, for me, it's an interesting exercise delving deeper into being okay with not knowing anything.
Yeah.
And it's just like deeper dive into not knowing anything at all and figuring it out, allowing ourselves to
there's a lot of power in accepting that in, though, and bringing that in. A lot of liberty and freedom.
Tons of it. Sean brings up the infinite monkey typewriter theory. Do you know anything about that?
Infinite monkey typewriter.
Yeah, I don't know.
What is it?
I have no idea. He just said, Dustin, you might want to look at the infinite monkey typewriter theory. It's within the laws of physics. It will happen, and not only will it happen, but it will happen infinite times.
Groovy.
Yeah, cool. I'll have to look it up later.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that is.
I got a monkey locked up in here, so.
Yeah, man, it's locked up in there. And I think that's the thing too, that people have a tough time struggling with. Yes,
yeah.
we are this part of this thing. Yes, this is your current shell, and this is your limitation inside of this infinitely huge thing. You're both. Deal with it. It's a dichotomy on purpose.
Why can't you be both? Why can't you?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, it's okay.
It's really, it is. And swallowing that and like synergizing that, I think it takes wisdom, obviously, to simultaneously construct conflicting ideas and to like synergize them together and to like rub these two ideas that are conflicting with each other, but I'm going to rub them together in my mind, and like doing that over and over and over. It's such a good mental exercise. So like even if you don't think that you're infinite and insignificant at the same time, just pretend like you are and think about what it would be like if you were, and entertain those thoughts in your mind as being this totally insignificant speck of a speck of a speck of a speck on a giant speck in a speck of a speck of a speck. Like that's all we are. But you're also part of that infinite connected network, and you're the most beautiful, amazing thing that's under the sun all at once. So just believe both of those things, and I don't know, man, it's a blast. I have a really good time with it.
It is a blast. I freaking love it. Oh, man. Love it, brother.
Me too, man. I'm glad we're talking today.
Me too.
Yeah, these things are good for me.
It's good for me too. It really is.
And I think going back and watching these again, listening to them later, is really good for my public speaking. I think that every time that we do this, there are groups of people that are going to benefit from it.
The funny thing too is that the thing that I like, that I get from it, is that I can practice letting go the fact that we're live, because it's just us, and so that I'm not showing up as somebody differently than I would be if there were no people here at all, you know. And so
this comes up for me a lot because I know my mom watches these occasionally, and so it's like, oh man, am I really gonna drop these bombs?
Yeah, I was fired up. There's one of these that we did, and you were fired up. You were like F F F F. It was like 30 minutes later. It's like, man, Dustin's he's really rare form tonight. And it's like, oh, and that's probably the only one your mom watches, you know.
I know. I think she watches a lot of them, man. She's
no, it's cool. I dig it. But it's like one of those things. It was recording a podcast, not this week, the week before, and I had some guests on that weren't normally there, because normally it's Amber and I, and Amber was sick, and so I was like, who wants to be on the podcast? And somebody just jumped on, and it felt more cookie cuttery, because it was like, oh, what's your format? And so like, we just talk about stuff, and that's just what we do. And they were like, oh, okay. And then it was I don't know. Anyways, like right now, it's like that moment of silence, and me and you talk about a lot of stuff where I'm just, And if you're in a certain company, you'll let me sit there and think for minutes, hours. Like you let it go, because you're like, I'm about this. Like I'm excited to see what comes out of there. And some people are like, silence is so hard. Like they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to let it in, or they're like, oh, somebody's got to be talking right now. And so I think that's one of the cool things that I like about this, is that we get to still be as if it was just me and you. And that's a mirror that I want to portray. There's no, this is extra. This is even more reason to have zero agenda. You know? Because this isn't, you know,
I was thinking about
typing. Go ahead.
I was thinking about how we say do weird shit, and how for some reason this blossoms into more, or we want to turn it into more for some reason. We should call it Do Weird Mondays. And
Do Weird Mondays. Keep Mondays weird.
Keep Mondays weird is a great name as well. I like that a lot.
It's a shout out to our prospective move to Austin.
Keep Mondays weird.
Mm-hmm. Keep Mondays weird. Yeah, I think about that.
Austin's a great place for you to go.
Mm-hmm.
I think your coaching really flourished down there.
I think so too. And this is hard.
Men that are begging for a guy like you to just tell them some stuff.
It's funny too because most of my clients are in California, and for like West Coast, I have no clients in Hawaii, and it's just like one of those things where
I feel like you're more lethal if you're in person, man.
I 100% agree, 100% agree. But I think one of the reasons people go to the beach for their therapy here, it's just different energy. Not that there's anything wrong with it.
It's just a different type of there's a different aptitude scope on the islands, and the target's also a little different, and the position in which the target's being aimed at is also a little bit different, and your scope of work, not that it's any less valuable or any less potentially useful. I wouldn't even say less needed. However, I feel like their lifestyle still is, I don't know, so.
It's just a different set of priorities here.
It is, man. And so like the motivations are different. So the internals are different. And that changes the way people are raised. So it changes the things that people are dealing with as a result. So the kinds of people that you're helping are coming from a different environment as a result. Like people who are raised on the island, it's a different, I don't know, it's a different, like you're saying, it's a different set of priorities, a different set of programs. They're climbing different mountains on their own struggles.
Yeah, for sure.
Not in the same realm as I feel like the kind of stuff that we're the most useful, the kinds of people that we're the most useful to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been really interesting to like see that reflect, and because one of the things that I talked to McCare on is that I want to do something locally. And I've been for 2 years trying to make it happen, and it just never seems to work out. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason. And then along with this like whole identity that we had both created about me getting out of the Navy, and then like, we're going to stay in Hawaii, everybody always bails, and freaking we're going to make it work. And now that we have made it work, it's like, all right, okay, cool. Now that we proved that point to ourselves, it's like, it's just, and it's just not the identity that I want to live by anymore either. So
that's ultimately what had me moving, man, is I pulled it off for 2 years, and I was like, I'm not growing at the rate that I was before.
Yeah.
Like,
nope. No.
Go.
Yeah. It's like just time to pack it up.
That's the problem about the island is it's very fertile. It's very fertile grounds, but there's a certain type of growth that's becomes very difficult. At least for me, there. And I was just because it's so fucking chill, man. Like you said, the therapy's the beach. Like. You don't necessarily
so chill,
same things. We're not de-escalating from the same situations that we are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like, I don't know if I talked about this last week, but there's this song that came out when I was like a senior in high school, and it was this Baz Luhrmann song. It's like wear sunscreen. It was like this spoken word, this like this little drum and bassy little backbeat. And he just talked about this part. He's like, you should move to Southern California, but leave before you get too soft. You should live in New York City, but leave before you get too hard. And so it's like whatever I was here to do and accomplish is done.
Yeah.
And can I label what that was? Maybe. Specifically, probably not. However, I can feel that it's done.
Yeah,
Bing.
you're ready to leave the
Yeah.
island embrace, man.
I'm ready to leave, man. I'm ready to go. Like I'm ready. And it's funny because I have this, and I think that this is normal, but there's all like this weird like leaving Hawaii guilt. It's really weird because it's like, man, I'm really gonna move to Texas from Hawaii. And it's like
The funny part is how you're not going to want to go back and visit, man. That's going to be
not gonna want to go back. Yeah, I've been here for 6 years.
visit.
I've seen every beach. I've done the stuff, and I was thinking about that. Like people who go to visit Hawaii, they're like, "Where do I go?" I was like, "Oh, go here, take a left, go to this thing, and this little taco hut, like that nobody knows about." And it's just, unless you use Yelp, and then you know exactly where it is. So it's like, it's been a fascinating process to realize. It's like, I'm done. Thanks, I appreciate it. I'm out.
Mahalo, bitches.
Yeah, mahalo, bitches. I'm peace. Like this sucks. I'm out, and it's
It's pretty great.
Yeah, I dig it.
Yeah, man.
I dig it.
Change is constant, whether you acknowledge it or not, and if this change is like something's breaking the change, right? Within you guys are breaking the change. So if this isn't going to be the change, then something else will, and it might not be something that you're as stoked about. So it's like this might be the be like water kind of thing, man. Like there is a cosmic force pulling you guys at it. That's why it's captured your fucking attention this way, and you guys are just like buzzing with it mentally and researching it and like getting kind of high off talking about it and like having that like elevated experience between the two of you as you like grind through hard conversations and like build this bigger version of the middle between the thing. And like it's rad, right? And like I don't know, those are all breadcrumbs for me, like pulling me at things that are the best for me. And I can't help but not think that that's what this is for you, man, especially because it's awesome.
For sure.
So cool.
Austin. So cool. Bobby asked a question about, he asks, what would you say to people that are still in the Navy, but are sure if this is the journey they want to continue in? And I love this question. I mean, this is my answer for you, Bobby, if you're still there. Yes, you are. You either want to be the MCPON and stay in, or you don't and get out. You're either about that life or you're not. Like I think it's either, are you fuck yeah about it because you have to be. And I stayed in for 20 years and I learned so much amazing stuff. But I believe, and this is one of those things, I believe that I stayed in longer than I should have, yet otherwise I would have got out and blah, 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 blah. But it's just like, do I want to stay in? If it's not fuck yeah, then you gotta go, man. You gotta go. And I think that that's the same with everything. Like this conversation. Everything. It's literally the answer to all things. Do I want to marry this person? Yes. Do it. Do I want to be a freaking pastry chef? Okay, no, you don't, because you were like, if you know it's not for you, there's something deeper. What's up, Daryl? How you doing? And so it's just like that. I think that's the answer to everything.
It is, man. If it doesn't get you to pay attention, then what the fuck are you doing wasting your time for?
Yeah, what are you doing? And it's like, and it's one of the best questions. This was an MLF. Tim asked this question to some guy in the group, right? And the guy was like, yeah, I kind of want to do this other thing. And the guy's like, how much money did you make? Tim was, how much money did you make a year? And he's like, oh, I make it was like $43,000 a year or something. And he's like, that's how much it costs for you to sell it on your dreams. And the Navy is this is what I believe it was. And not everybody agrees with this, but this is what I believe it is. I think it's a really great place for lost people who don't really know what they want. So you can go explore the world, and that's what they sold you. But I believe for me, early on, I realized that wasn't who I was, and I was too scared to go do this. And it took me 2 major bouts with depression, 2 divorces, and 14 years separated from my son. Like I had to suffer those losses, those casualties, to understand like there's more. We can be better. We can do more. We can do more. We get to create whatever we want. And whatever we believe is whatever we believe. And it's, yeah, Daryl, I agree. My 20 years has set me up for an incredible civilian life. I agree. And I think questioning decisions in the future is healthy as well, Sean. But I think that it's,
we can be better. We can do more. We can do more.
Hold on, I just turned off the volume on the other thing. But the question is do I want to be here where I'm at creating this future? Shut up, other volume. Okay.
Yeah, that also happened to me. That was my fault a little bit. I was wanting to make sure there was no
all good. And so, but I think when you ask yourself these questions, the future that I want to create or don't want to create, is the thing I'm doing right now moving me towards that? And the answer is either yes or no. It's either yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a perfect science, because we sometimes make decisions that we're 100% sure are moving us in one direction, and something else completely blossoms, or you plant one seed and you're for sure it's going to be an apple tree and it turns out to be an orange tree or a peach tree in the case of Kung Fu Panda. But it's just, you know.
Well, the most important thing that I like to keep super close to my heart when making decisions is what do I actually have to lose by making the decision? Not what are my perceived losses, what's like really actually on the line, and what do I have to gain? And so when I think about those, and then what am I really afraid of? And it's becomes like a great opportunity to use this thing as like a growth mechanism. Like, okay, so this is triggering me. This is triggering me. I'm gonna pay attention. I'm gonna invest in my own growth and pay attention to these things that are making me scared. And I'm gonna receive a return on my investment because I'm gonna watch myself, and I'm gonna see these triggers, and then I'm gonna go do the fucking thing. And worst case scenario is if I completely fucking fail and everything I did was a complete waste, what did I really lose? Because if that was my very first question, and so what did I really lose? And so it's, I don't know, it's anything that you can get once, you can get twice.
And I think this kind of goes back to the placebo thing and like really belief for me. Like, I think it's impossible to lose anything ever, because those experiences that you're talking about are literally what give us better tools to make better decisions in the future.
Absolutely.
So even if you
really
fail, whatever that means, it's not even a loss. Like, it's so good for you. And so the 20 years, like contextually thinking that thing, the 20 years that I spent that I felt like I should have got out like after 4, like I still had 20 years of this amazing experience of all these different leadership styles and a fear-based leadership that I don't want to participate in anymore, and really showing up from a place of love and passion and excitement and what excites me, and, you know, and leading, finding out what people want and who they are, like in their core, and leading them in that direction instead of leading them in a direction that some old freaking 75-year-old white dude with like massive remote control ships wants me to lead them instead. And so it's really taking ownership of me and what I want. So Bobby, if you're still here listening, to take ownership for what you really, really want to achieve. Is staying in the Navy going to help you achieve that in the most effective way? If you're 100% sure, then stay in and you'll find out what's true later. And, you know, if it's not, dude, you got to go. You got to go. And I would encourage you to tell all your sailors that are working for you as well. And because it's like, dude, the Navy is a who you like. You got to love that stuff, or you got to pretend you love it until you break down.
If your heart's not in it, then why is your ass in it? You know,
yeah,
if your heart's
exactly.
not in it, then why is your ass in it? And so
yeah,
that's just with anything, like you said, man. If you go off the compass, then you're on for solid leadership.
Yeah, for sure. No, Bobby, I appreciate you asking that question, because I think metaphorically that's the question for all your stuff. Like, Dustin's climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in freaking 3.5 months. And it's like, Dustin, why are you doing that? Because he's fucking stoked about it. That's why he's doing it. Like, literally no other reason. He's stoked about it. That's it. I'm stoked. I want to find out what happens. And I'm stoked. And this is the way I want to find it out. And yeah. And I encourage you. Another thing you mentioned, you have 2 people, HM3 and Bobby Crowell. Those name tags are on your shirt too. One says U.S. Navy and one says Crowell. The U.S. Navy's always going to do them. They're always going to pick Navy. always, you have to take care of this person. You do. And if you believe taking care of you is staying in, then stay in. If you think, I mean, there's always a cost and benefit. You're going to get out, you're going to have a new cost. If you're going to stay in, there's a cost. There's a benefit to both sides. And it's, I would just lean into it. Which one you feel freaking just like, which one lights you up, man? Which one is scarier? And then go do that. Find out where your fear is and go live there. Pack a freaking sack lunch.
Find the edge, motherfucker.
Yeah, find it. Find it. Every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
The cool thing about the edge is every time you find it, it gets a little further away.
Yeah, it's a little further away. You're like, I thought I was right there.
As long as you're not traumatically pushed off the edge. If you're traumatically pushed off the edge, then that edge becomes the scariest thing ever. And you have to spend years unpacking that experience.
Yep.
Coming from experience.
Coming from experience. Yeah.
But if you approach that edge with responsibility and integrity, that edge gets further away every time, every single time. All right, man. I think I'm going to go eat some dinner. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
Good talk.
Yeah, for sure. I dig it.
Hell yeah, man.
Sean doesn't think that life is this black and white. Cool, man. It's not.
No, it's infinite shades of gray. It's also it's this black and white, and it's also infinite shades of gray. It's both.
Yeah, it's both. It's both. Because when I say like it's either yes or no, like I mean there's 2 points, and then like you can blow those up infinite space, and there's like so much data in between that.
Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah, and we can nuance about that. And we can hang out and freaking pull that apart, or we can make fucking choices and learn things. And so like, this is fun to nuance, but then in the end, like I got to get off this call and go make some decisions about stuff. And so, that's why we do both. So we can become better decision makers, and then also be able to slow down and become better ponderers all at the same time. Because it's just it's all of it and it's none of it. So
well said. I think the last thing that I'll say is about change, and change is the most fun when it's on purpose, and it's the least fun when it's on accident. So if your life needs to change, hop in the driver's seat and take advantage of it and make the change. Because if you know your life needs to change and you don't change it, you're going to wind yourself up into a position where it's going to change for you, and it's going to be way less fun and way less empowering. But it will happen. It will just happen many years later. And that's how change works, baby. Because if it's going to happen either way. If it's in your path, it's in your path. It's just you're going to take longer to get there.
Hi, brother. Mahalo.
See you later, man.
Peace out. See you next week.
Awesome 2019.
Heck yeah, dude. Later.
Later.